So I think I started putting together my little survival kit after my dad died. This is what this is me when I was 5 years old. See, isn't she cute? Yeah, she's got the little glasses, yeah. Actually, the glasses were kind of new at that point. God, I'm old. Anyway, the glasses were new. I was, when I was 4 years old, I had nephritis and kidney failure. And I blew up like a balloon. My kidneys stopped working. So I was in the hospital for a month through Easter, and it's my bird. That's my cockatiel in a very happy mood right now. Bird room in the background. I just put this door in last week, and I'm very proud of this door. Brightens up my hallway. This is where, this room back here, the bird room, is where Tim used to, that was his room. But he mostly slept on the couch downstairs, and yes, I'm digressing. I try not to think about it as anything but the bird room. For a long time I just sat with the doors closed. What was I saying? Oh yes, survival kits. When I had nephritis and I was in the hospital for a month, my dad would visit every day. I was 4 years old, and so it was the year before that picture was taken. And I can tell because I have glasses in that picture, and before I had nephritis, I didn't have bad vision. My vision went bad very, very quickly after that hospital stay. But my dad would come every day to the hospital, later in the day, like maybe sometime after dinner, and he always, without fail, would bring me an orange. To this day, of course, I love oranges, but oh, I still look forward to that. I look forward to that visit. It might be partly why I was such a daddy's girl. I don't know. My mom probably would have come, but you know, back then she was taking care of my brother and the house. And mostly when we went out as a family, my dad did the driving, so it made sense that he would be the one to visit. And I so look forward to it, because I totally love my dad. And he'd bring an orange. I remember one time he brought a banana, and it wasn't a good thing. I wasn't very happy, because, you know, you get your hopes up for a nice orange, and what do you get, a banana? Hello. Anyway, so that's a picture of me when I was 5, and that's probably what I looked like when we went on our last vacation, family vacation together. We went to Colorado, and while we were on the vacation, that's when my dad started to get sick. And anyway, he died 3 days after my 6th birthday. And I think it was at this time that I started putting together my survival kit. And that's just something that I call it now as an adult. I never thought of it like that when I was living back then. I was just doing whatever I could do to get through, you know. But I came to really hang on to the memories I had my first 5 years. First 5 years, because the last year that my dad was alive, he had lymph gland cancer, which I think I'm not sure what it's called now, if it's colon cancer or what the term is for it now, but back in the day that's what it was called. Lymph gland cancer. He had cancer in his lymph glands, and I guess he had to go through some serious radiation therapy. And I don't remember that. I don't remember my dad going through any kind of therapy. I was so little. I remember we went to Madison a lot, and went to this health food store that was just, I hated that store. My mom would go there and she'd buy prune juice for my dad, and just the idea of prune juice just makes my skin crawl. But this store, I don't know if health food stores are still this way, but back then, I remember just everything just smelled so bad. Oh, I hated that store. And we had to go there every time we went to Madison. And I don't even remember my dad being with us, but apparently he was. Maybe that was when he was getting his radiation. But for the last year that he was alive, he was downstairs on the hide-a-bed in our house in Wisconsin. And my mom slept upstairs in the master bedroom, and I had my bedroom, kitty corner to the master bedroom. And my brother's room was next to the master bedroom. And I'd come downstairs every day, and my dad would always be in bed. And I didn't really get to talk to him. It's like we were told to leave him alone because he was resting. He was tired. And we had people come help with the nursery. My mom had hired hands come and work on the nursery because my dad couldn't. And I remember in Colorado he got really sick. That's when he got really sick, and my mom had to drive pretty much the whole way home. My dad was in the passenger seat with his head on a pillow. Then we were in the back, and we were supposed to be quiet. And so one day, I don't even remember waking up and going downstairs and not seeing my dad. I remember I had my 6th birthday and I was really angry. I was angry because my dad didn't get out of bed and come and be with me for my birthday party. And I was angry at my dad that I was not important enough to him, that he would not come to my birthday. And I don't remember any of this, but I'm told that the night after, or the night of my birthday, after we went to bed, apparently I went downstairs with a pair of scissors, and I took the scissors to the bed sheets that my dad was sleeping, and I cut the bed sheets with the scissors. I don't remember doing this, but that's what I was told. That's what I was told. And I just remember being really hurt and angry that he couldn't come to my party, which was just, it was in the dining room, which was just off the living room. It's all the same room, but he couldn't get out of bed. 3 days after my birthday, he died, but I didn't know. I don't remember that day. I don't remember because I don't remember seeing, when I came downstairs, I don't remember even noticing that he wasn't in the bed. I was so used to not bothering him that I maybe just assumed that he wasn't in the bed. But I remember most of the day playing outside and not really paying any attention to anything. And it wasn't until dusk that I was upstairs, and my mom called to me, and it wasn't to my brother, it was to me, which makes me think my brother might have already known. And I came downstairs, and our pastor was there. And as soon as I saw him, it's like it clicked in my head that my dad wasn't where he was supposed to be. And I did the thing that the kid does in Braveheart, when he sees the guys coming across the field with the wagon and the oxen, and he's got the buckets of water, and he realizes his father's not there, and he realizes that something really bad, it's like he just knows something really bad, and he turns away. That's what I did. I turned away. Before the pastor even opened his mouth, I turned away and I looked at the wall. And I heard the pastor tell me that my dad had died. And I don't remember exactly what he said. I don't remember. I know I found out later, maybe it was when I was an adult, I found out that he had, how my dad had died. But I think back then, that's all it was that my dad had died, and that I would see him again in heaven someday. And I didn't have any idea how long that would be. I just knew that it was a long, long time. So that wasn't when I started building the survival kit. It was after the funeral. My mom made us go see my dad, and I didn't like that because that wasn't how I wanted to remember him. And that's how I did remember him. I don't have very many pictures of my dad. My mom had all my pictures, or all the pictures, and it wasn't until she lost her apartment that I got all the pictures. But I took some photocopies of the pictures, and one of the things I did with them was I made this plate of my dad. So he looks really pink because it's a bad picture. And then they put stuff on it to make it stick to the plate, so it turned it pink. That's my dad. He died when he was 42. So I've outlived him now. We went to the, I don't remember much about the funeral. I just remember people sang in our front yard the night that I was told that he died. The choir from our church came to our front yard and sang. And we had a service at the church. And I don't remember if the service at the church was the funeral or if the funeral was in a funeral hall. It seems like there was an actual funeral hall because he had an open casket. My mom made us go down and look at him. I guess she probably felt that it was good for us to have a way to say goodbye. But, you know, it's funny because he didn't look like my dad. They had shaved the beard. His beard was gone, and he didn't have his glasses on that he always wore. And it didn't look like my dad. He was very gaunt, and without his beard you could really tell. Think don't get too depressing. I actually wanted to talk about my my survival kit. I think I knew that I was going to need one when we went to the cemetery. My mom took us to the cemetery, and this was after they had put the ground over, and it was just this freshly turned ground in a, you know, grave shape. And I was appalled that, just thinking that my dad was under the dirt, and I had to know that it wasn't true. You know, a little kid, I needed reassurance. I wanted to hear my mom say that my dad was in heaven. Well, I asked her, you know, is Daddy under the dirt? Now this is the funny part of the memory. I remember she slapped me. And I don't know to this day if it really is true that she slapped me. I remember she slapped me, but now as an adult I think about how my mom was, and she never slapped me across the face, ever. It just... Then again, she was kind of going through what I think was her first break from reality at that time. So maybe she did slap me, or maybe it was that her reaction was so horrible and so unexpected that I remember it as a slap. Maybe it was like a slap for me. Maybe it was like cold, icy water on my face, realizing something was terribly wrong. But she reacted violently, and she was very angry, and she grabbed me and my brother by our wrists and dragged us from the cemetery and vowed she would never take us back there. And to this day, I've never seen my dad's grave. I've never seen it. I've only seen it at one time with the dirt over it. In fact, I didn't even know where the cemetery was for the longest time. Now I do, so if ever I go back to Wisconsin on my own, I'll probably go see that cemetery, and that'll be very hard. So, my mom locked herself in her room after that, and I remember my grandma and grandpa showed up. I have a picture of them too. This is my grandma and grandpa Simer. This is my mom's parents. I loved my grandpa. He died very shortly after my dad. Before we moved out here to Washington, my grandpa had died. And I was 8 when we moved out here, so it was within 2 years after my dad. But I remember my mom was really weird after my dad died. My mom went through a whole thing with the occult and trying to contact my dad and thinking that our house was haunted. And I remember my grandpa and my mom had a real knockdown, drag-out fight upstairs, and I mean there was a lot of shrieking. And I remember my grandpa walking around the back side of the nursery house, and I was tagging along behind him because I loved my grandpa. I adored my grandpa. What kid doesn't love their grandparents? And he was so quiet. I remember I was trying to talk to him because I mean, you hear your mom screaming, and my mom was always crying in that room or very, very quiet. And this was like the first time I had heard her talking, and she was screaming. And he was shouting, and I never heard my grandpa shout. He always had a very soft voice, like. And I remember walking behind him in the back of the house, and he was poking at. It was like ivy that came down the walls of the house. We had a red brick house, and it had this curtain of ivy that came down. I remember the leaves. It's funny, the leaves always tasted kind of like peppermint, so I used to like to nibble on those leaves, which is weird because who knows if that ivy was even edible. But I remember that ivy tasted a little bit like peppermint, and it came down the side of the wall of the house, the side where the garage was, and then also down the side of the garage, and it kind of pooled at the bottom into like greenery. It was like whatever. And my grandpa was poking at that, and I was trying to talk to him. I was trying to get him to be the grandpa that I loved, and he was just not even talking to me. And I thought he was mad. I thought he was mad at me. But he was so quiet. He just seemed so. It wasn't like he was even angry. He just seemed like he was so disturbed. He was very disturbed. And I didn't know, and I was very confused, and I was scared. And I don't remember if that's before or after my mom took us. My mom, we thought our house was haunted, and I went most of my adult life thinking that my house was haunted because my mom was very convincing, and to this day I don't think it really was haunted now, but for most of my adult life I did think we had a haunted house, and it's partly what allowed me to believe in religion, and what allowed me to believe in, things that go bump in the night, because there was some really weird stuff. And I really think it's the power of suggestion now as an adult, knowing that my mom had paranoid schizophrenia, and that was probably her first break. Now I can think back and think, okay, it's probably all it was my mom was having delusions, and she was so convincing. And when you're a little kid, you've got this super hyper imagination. I had a really good imagination. So she took us, and we went all over Milwaukee from hotel to hotel, and we were being pursued by these entities. And she believed that she had brought them down upon us because she had gotten into the occult. Remember, she went out to the cornfield with all this stuff, incense and books and stuff that she had, and she burned them. And that was just before we left the house. And now I don't remember if that happened before or after the thing with my grandpa, but I know that my uncle was trying very hard to, my mom wanted to take us out here. Anyway, I wanted to show one of my survival kit things. Besides the memory of my grandpa, I had a really great memory of my grandpa. He gave me a little toy that had it was a cat with a orange plastic head, and it had a great big smile on its face, and it was wearing fabric clothes. And I remember looking at this toy and sitting on my grandpa's lap, and the toy made me laugh, and I kept looking at it and laughing, and my grandpa, and I was on my grandpa's knee, and he was laughing, and I'm pretty sure that was a memory after my dad had died. And so that was one of my memories that I kept in my little survival kit. This is another one. This is a cat that I had. She came with 3 kittens, and one was yellow, one was pink, and one was white. And I still have her. I think I have the kitten somewhere too. But she's something I've held on to because she was a good memory. I got her from my mom and dad when he was still alive. So anyway, it's the memories that I've held on to that helped me get through my childhood when I didn't have my mom like I used to have anymore. I remember my grandpa, I remember my dad, I remember I think I made another video about the trips in his truck and going to the farms. And the visits when I was in the hospital when I was sick. And those have been my survival kit growing up, my memories that I still have to this day. The only bad thing about keeping a kit like that is it's hard to get out of the habit of remembering things when you constantly look back. You know, you get into the habit of constantly looking back. It's really hard when you have things you don't want to look back and remember. But they still come back and bite you in the ass because you remember them, because you're in the habit of going back and looking at memories. So anyway, record thing is gonna shut off, so I'm gonna end this. I just wanted to share a little bit about my dad and things about my past, just because I feel like I'm trying to go with what I feel like in my gut that might help me get over my depression, and this is something I felt like might help. So anyone listening, thanks for listening. That's all. Bye.